podcast where two longtime friends and sometimes a guest talk about their favorite games from the perspective of an average player. My name is Andrew Kimball.
And I'm Dylan Wren, and we are your friendly neighborhood gamers.
No. Not then! Not again! We need to run!
I need a weapon.
Weapon? This is all I've got.
It's enough.
Wait, what are you gonna do?
Improvise. Close the door.
Welcome back to the podcast and welcome to our launch group of episodes here. This is the first spoiler cast. It's the game-specific spoiler cast episode of that bunch. As previously stated, I'm Andrew Kimball, and I'm here with Dylan Wren. Dylan, how you doing?
I am doing all right. We're on break, so
Yes, we are.
it's nice to be able to relax and just play Halo and, play these other video games and take some time off from all the other stuff that we've got on our plates.
I'm going to say you should probably be pretty excited because, this is like one of your franchises.
Yes, for sure. I spoilers, I love this game, so you're going to hear me talking a lot about how much I love it. But yes, I was happy that this is not like an Elden Ring situation where it's coming out like smack in the middle of a semester. This was like, hey, we're going to drop it right at the end of finals week for you. So here you go.
Exactly. Yeah. FromSoft and Bandai Namco. How could you do this to me?
Yes.
But we're not talking about Elden Ring on this episode. Unfortunately, we're talking about a little game called Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite is a first-person shooter developed by 343 Industries and published by Xbox Game Studios. It is the sixth mainline entry in the Halo series, and the third in the Reclaimer saga following Halo 5 Guardians. The campaign follows the human super soldier Master Chief and his fight against the enemy Banished on the Forerunner ringworld Zeta Halo, also known as Installation 07. Unlike previous installments in the series, the multiplayer portion of the game is free to play. We'll touch on that for sure. Infinite was initially planned to be released as a launch title with the Xbox Series X and S on November 10th, 2020, but was delayed in August 2020. Following an open beta release of the multiplayer component on November 15th, 2021, coinciding with the franchise's 20th anniversary, the campaign was released for Microsoft Windows, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S on December 8th, 2021. Halo Infinite received generally favorable reviews from critics, with some deeming the game a return to form for the series. I generally would agree with that. What about you, Dylan?
I would too. I would definitely agree with it being a return to form. It feels very much like sort of the old school Halo. The story feels more in line with the old school Halos, but it's also modern. It's a game that came out in 2021. It's got sprint. It's got aim down sights. It's got a lot of those things that we've come to know and love in our more modern games.
Yeah, I think it did a really good job of capturing that nostalgic feel while being a really good feeling modern shooter. Obviously, it feels different from, say, Call of Duty because it's a spaceman shooter versus, like a more military-esque game, but it still feels good. It feels punchy. It feels active. It feels frantic. I feel like a lot of my kind of complaints going back to Halo is just how slow it feels, and I think Infinite did a really good job of fixing that.
Yeah. It is interesting to go back and look at where the series came from and where it is now, for sure. And just kind of how shooters have evolved over the years too. Back when the original Halo came out, most of the shooters, the console shooters before it, had been things like GoldenEye or Time Splitters or maybe Perfect Dark or a couple of other games on like the Nintendo. They might have had like a Medal of Honor or something that came out before this. But Halo was kind of like, boom, here is sort of a mainstream first-person shooter that came out. And a bunch of people played, and, you know, it was a lot slower back then. Now, you know, you've got all the sort of twitchy shooters like Call of Duty or Battlefield or, you know, a lot of those where it's just so fast and frenetic. The time to kill is ridiculous. And Halo is very different from that crowd.
Yeah, which I think is a good thing. You know, it sets it apart. It has its own identity. When you play Halo Infinite, even though it feels more modern, you know that feeling. Oh, this is Halo.
Yes.
This feels like Halo.
Yes. I am not playing Call of Duty. I'm not playing Battlefield. I'm not playing Titanfall. I'm playing something different, something newer, which is, you know, I appreciate. I like the feel of this game. I like not, you know, as somebody who's older now, I like not having to have a millisecond reaction time in order to stay alive and be good at these games. I like to be able to be like, oh, I'm getting shot. Let me use my skills to try to survive this and get the kill from them.
Yeah. No, I can definitely relate to that. I was playing some multiplayer the other day and was actually doing quite well, and that's not something I can usually say when I'm playing Call of Duty. If I break even in Call of Duty, I feel like I'm doing good, but I feel like in Halo I have the time needed to be able to actually pull out a win here and there, and so I really like that about it.
Yeah, so I know I've been playing Halo basically since it came out. My buddy Nick had an Xbox across the street from me, and we would hang out after school or something and just play through the campaign of like the original Halo, or spend hours playing multiplayer on, you know, just 1v1 basically in the original Halo. And I eventually got an Xbox, played a bunch of Halo 2, got a 360, played a bunch of Halo 3. Halo Reach came out while I was in college. That was maybe one of the last games I went to a midnight launch for.
Yeah.
And so like I got that game, picked it up, and played it for a few hours until I was too tired to stay awake with some friends. And we just like played some co-op. Halo 4 and 5, I think, also came out like while I was in college. And they were okay. They weren't my favorite. They weren't bad games, but they just didn't hook me like other Halos had before. And, you know, some of that could have been a time and place where I think 4 and 5 came out when I was maybe not like I didn't. It was more of like if I'm going to play with people, I'm going to play online with them versus like sort of that couch co-op feel.
Yeah.
That a lot of the others had been. But it was still, you know, still good games. They just didn't keep me like the others had. And then Halo Infinite is sort of that return to that feel that a lot of the older games had for me, where the story kind of touches on a lot of that stuff. The multiplayer feels very much like when I felt like I was kind of good at Halo in like Halo 2 in 3 days versus, you know, 4 and 5, where I did not feel as good at Halo. Now, I know that's kind of my like 20-year history with the series. What's your history with Halo as a franchise?
So my history with Halo. So growing up, I was a Nintendo kid for the most part. GameCube was like my first console. So I had a friend, he didn't live across the street, but his name was Dylan, and I would go to his house sometimes and I would play Halo at his house, and it was mostly multiplayer and mostly local matches. Anytime we ever tried to do anything online related, It usually wasn't fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
Then got an Xbox 360 of my very own, bought it with my own money. So excited. And the games that I bought for it, the first games I bought were Assassin's Creed 2, Grand Theft Auto 4. I might have also bought Red Dead, and then Halo 3.
Mm-hmm.
And ironically, Assassin's Creed has become like one of my favorite series. Well, the copy of Halo 3 that I got was in Spanish. Being a kid at the time, I don't know if maybe a setting was messed up that I could have fixed, but I feel like I remember the case also being like, I didn't realize until I got home, but even the case, the text on the case being in another language. So I think I ended up just selling it on eBay or something, or taking it back to GameStop and getting some credit or something like that. And so that moment right there might have been that pivotal moment where Halo just didn't become one of my series.
Yeah.
Because I didn't actually play through Halo 3. And so after that, I recognized it. I knew it was a big series, but just it was never my series.
Yeah.
So if you've listened to the first episode that we launched with our Game Awards, you will have heard my experience trying to go back and play Halo 1 this year. Did not really enjoy it. It has aged a lot. I'm in Halo 2 currently. I do want to play through all of them. And Halo 2 has been fun. I just haven't finished it yet. And then, Infinite came out. The press leading up to Infinite and the gameplay and everything looked fun to me. And it seemed like, oh, okay, if this is a faster, more modern Halo, this might be a good jumping in point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think generally that turned out to be the case. We'll get into it a little bit later with the story. But as far as gameplay, this game felt fantastic. It was a lot of fun. And I've played enough Halo to know what it feels like and sort of how to play and what the rhythm is. And so for me, this has been one of 2 Halo games that I've played start to finish.
I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts as you continue through the series, because I do think it's a fun series. But this is definitely up there with one of the better ones, I think, to play through start to finish.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And I will say I did go and I watched a few videos about just kind of the general story arc of Halo. Obviously, for the diehards, there's novels and all the strategy games and everything like that. So a 15-minute YouTube video is not going to catch me up, but it did kind of give me the highlights of what has happened in the story. And even that kind of felt like, oh, this is a lot. I feel like I should be taking notes.
Yeah. We need some Vati Vidya.
Yeah. He needs to get on that Halo.
Yes. Because
which is crazy, because for a game that on the outside just looks like Green Spaceman kills aliens, the lore and the stuff that's happened, and even one of the videos I watched was talking kind of about the biblical symbolism and how his name is John 117 or whatever, or his number is, and just the ark and all these kind of terms that seem to have come from the Bible and stuff. It's like, wow, that's just a bunch of stuff that completely went over my head.
Oh yeah, because there is a lot of just kind of the Master Chief, whose name is John, is trying to stop the flood. They have to go to the Ark to do that, to stop the halos from firing, all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
There is a lot of interesting sort of symbolism there as you kind of dig into it and get into it. And yeah, I have not read the novels either. I'm sure there's a lot more stuff in there, and I haven't played through. I've played through about half of the original Halo Wars, but I know there's a lot of other places you can get some of that lore. But it is interesting hearing your perspective on you enjoyed the story. You thought it was an okay sort of jumping off point, although maybe not the greatest. There was a lot that you kind of felt like you were jumping into as somebody who's at least played through all the mainline games.
Yeah, and we can dive into that. I mean,
Yeah.
We'll throw out a spoiler warning here that we are going to talk about the story of this game and anything that it might connect to in previous games. So just, a heads up on that. We're going to do story spoilers in this episode. But yeah, the thing I liked about this story, about this game, was the kind of core, I don't want to say familial, but more like team, I guess. They were more of these three people that didn't really know each other, crossing paths, having to work together to achieve a goal, and how that took place over the course of the game. I liked that. I thought some of it was a little heavy-handed when the weapon got her feelings hurt because Chief tried to delete her.
Yeah.
I thought that felt a little like her reaction was a little overdone, but
yeah,
in general, like I really like those three characters and how they interacted and how they came together as a cohesive unit by the end to take on this threat. All the stuff with Cortana, all the stuff with their past relationship, and all these kind of, like, I could feel that Chief was in pain, but I didn't know why. I could see what they were going for, but I didn't connect with it. And so that was the kind of stuff where it felt like, all right, we're dropping you in, hope you are caught up. If not, oh well. And so for that part of the story, it was kind of like, well, maybe I'd be getting more out of this if I was like a lifelong fan. But the kind of more surface level story that they told with the three main characters, being Chief, the weapon, and the pilot, I really enjoyed that arc a lot.
Yeah, because I definitely thought that was a very, even if you didn't maybe get a bunch of the background story or the deeper lore, you could definitely understand, like, okay, Chief and the weapon, like, he found the weapon, which is like the AI. She was supposed to have been deleted, but she's not. She's still here. She's going to help him out. They find this pilot who's going to help them out. He, like, is the one that finds Chief and wakes him up, and he just wants to go home, but his kind of character growth throughout is really cool. And as someone who has played all of the games, even jumping into this one, I felt like I was a little lost, just because I was trying to go back and remember, like, well, what happened in Halo 5? I thought Cortana was basically dead at the end of Halo 5. What's going on?
Right.
Where is the story going? And is she still alive? What's going on here? So
right. Yeah.
There definitely was, even as somebody who has kept up with the lore and the story, there was a little bit of
some
just
confusion.
Kind of like, what's going on? Where are we? Are we retconning things? What's happening here?
But I think they did a good job tying it together in the end and making it feel intentional. Whereas, some games could drop you in, you feel confused, and then you leave feeling confused. Like,
yeah,
even as somebody who had no history other than the first game, I got the gist of what had happened at the end. There was like the post credits thing. I didn't really understand what all was going on there. I had to watch a video, but the core Cortana Chief weapon story, I got it by the end. And I feel like they did that on purpose. They wanted to throw everyone for a loop and then bring it all together at the end. And I think they did a pretty good job at that. Whereas it could have just started messy and ended messy.
Exactly. Because, if you play this game and you're like, I'm confused and I'm going to quit playing this game, I would encourage you to keep going, because the last two levels really are kind of like, oh, this is what happened. Now it's all making sense. You kind of pick up months after everything has happened, and the last couple of levels are you finally figuring out, oh, this is like, even though you're playing as the Master Chief and he knows what went on, your perspective is more from the perspective of the weapon, who doesn't really know kind of what's going on, and is figuring it out as it happens. And so as you continue to play through it, she learns, and then you learn, like, oh, this is like Cortana was going rampant, and she was having a bit of a god complex, and she blew up the Brut's homeworld, and she blew up the Spartans, and then Atriox, who I guess is the bad guy from Halo 2, Halo Wars 2.
Yeah.
Like Atriox comes and like is attacking her, and she loses, and you find out all of the stuff as it's happening in like the last couple of levels where you're finally starting to understand.
Yeah, I like what you said about how you're more kind of relating to how the weapon is figuring stuff out, because I think and I'm sure it exists, but if there's a video on YouTube that's like all Master Chief dialogue from this game, it's probably maybe 7 minutes long.
Yeah.
Because he's just like 2 words, couple grunts, couple one-liners that just makes him seem totally awesome. Like he says the perfect thing at the perfect time to be just super cool, but he's not very helpful to his team for most of the game.
Yeah.
He's just like a one-man wrecking crew on a mission. And it's kind of towards the back half where he starts to care about his other 2 teammates a little bit.
Yeah. And some of that I think is just the chief being the chief. That is his kind of like MO. Some of it, you know, as the chief gets Cortana in Halo 1 and then is over the course of the next 5 games, she eventually dies. And so, you know, he's definitely grieving in this game, but I think you're right. It doesn't necessarily come across super well because it's, you know, the chief's just like, we're going to finish the mission. Missions always change or whatever, you know, like,
right.
Which is a really badass line, but it's also like, yeah, man, like you're cool. It doesn't really give you much of that emotional depth. A lot of the emotion comes from the weapon or the pilot. Those are definitely like the emotional cores of the game.
Yeah, but I do think that Chief is still a relatable character because there are a lot of people, and even myself to a certain extent, when you are going through something, you know, the tendency is to just kind of like shut it down, push it down, like hold it in and then power through whatever you've got to do, like hyper focus on whatever your job is. And also on the other thing you mentioned about him getting Cortana in Halo 1, I think that the whole thing 343 was trying to do with the vibe of this game was remind people of Halo 1. Mm-hmm. And so I think they were going back to that real simple chief, you know?
Yeah.
They didn't want him to be this character bearing his soul or whatever. They wanted it to just be like, Chief is the baddest dude in the galaxy, and we're going back to that kind of simple one-track mind vibe. At least that's a vibe I got, you know?
Oh, yeah. And there's just so many parts of the story that do kind of call back to those original Halo games. Even sometimes the alien complex that goes on a little bit too long. They call back to that once or twice.
Yeah, we could touch on that too. We've kind of touched on, you know, what we liked about the story, but the actual gameplay of the campaign. We'll talk about the campaign, and then when we're done talking about the campaign, we'll shift into multiplayer to kind of wrap this thing up. But so the gameplay of the campaign, this is the first time Halo's been fully open world. You can go across this open chunk of the Zeta Halo, and the open world missions are taking down FOBs, which are, what does that stand for? Frontal
forward operating bases.
Operating base, yeah. So you take those down to kind of establish your presence on Zeta Halo, and then there are also slightly bigger bases you can take down, and then smaller little objectives like radio towers and collectibles that get you cosmetics in multiplayer or get you upgrades in the single player. And so you just kind of, I found it to be a really, in general, like a good flow of, all right, I'm going to this bigger thing, but on the way I'm going to stop at these 2 or 3 smaller things and pick them up along the way, maybe hit this bounty target, pick up this cosmetic, and then I'll go take out this FOB.
Yeah, because it did flow very well. It felt good in that it didn't feel like there were too many.
Yeah, it was very manageable.
Yeah, it's not like the map was just littered with tons and tons and tons of bounty targets and bases and little squads of Marines to rescue and all that kind of stuff. There are a lot of them, but it doesn't feel like an overwhelming amount. It doesn't feel like maybe some of the Far Cries or the Assassin's Creeds of the more recent times, where it's just like so many things to do. It felt very like, if I were to try to get all of the bases in Valhalla or something like that, that feels like a very overwhelming thing to have to do.
Exactly.
Whereas getting all the bases in Halo felt very manageable. You know, like you still had to put your mind to it. There were definitely bases that if you were just sticking to the golden path of the story, you probably wouldn't go to and get.
Yeah.
But there weren't so many that it felt like you had to just stop and spend a week doing that instead.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that a lot. I was kind of reminded of Arkham City or some of these other open world games, but the world is like small and dense versus just sprawling and empty, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a criticism of a lot of the kind of more recent Ubisoft games. And I don't think this had that, because there weren't as many things on the map, but it also felt like it wasn't going to be tedious to go from one objective to the next, even if you were on foot. And that was partially to do with the fact that the map wasn't too big, but also because they gave you a grappling hook. And that grappling hook was probably one of the best additions to this game that they could have given, because you can see just a straight sheer wall and think, yeah, I'm going to go over that.
Exactly.
So you never felt like you were losing momentum, kind of the Breath of the Wild thing, where I tried to play this last year. I tried to play Far Cry 5, and I got into it a little bit, and I was playing it, and then I hit this point where I crossed a river that took forever to swim across, got out of the river, and then there was a chain link fence. And I ran up and down the length of this chain link fence, couldn't find an opening, couldn't jump over it. And so finally I just said, all right, I'm done for tonight. And you know what? I have not gone back to Far Cry 5 since then. Games should not stop your momentum like that. And I think Halo, by adding the grappling hook, along with all the various vehicles that you can find throughout the game, but the grappling hook especially just made traversal so much fun in this game.
And I think they do a good job too of opening the map up slowly. Not like so slowly that it's just like, oh, come on. But it's not like they throw the entirety of the map at you immediately. It's, okay, you have like these 2 or 3 subsections that you can do. And then as you progress the main story, another couple of subsections will open. And then as you progress the main story, another 2 or 3 will open. And so it keeps it from feeling, and it makes it very clear, like it's not like you're going to swim across a river and hit a chain link fence. It's like, here is this massive chasm, the bridge is out. Eventually you will find something that will let you get across this bridge.
Right.
It makes it very clear, like you are not just, grappling across this. So yeah, I think it is a very, just the way that they give you to get around feels very good, to the point where, especially the grappling hook, I found myself not even like at any of the forward operating bases that you take over, you can call in a vehicle. And until I unlocked the Wasp, which is like the flying vehicle at the forward operating bases, I don't think I called in a vehicle really. I think for the most part, I was just running around with my grappling hook, getting places. Occasionally I'd hijack a vehicle from like the enemies or something, but I don't think I ever called one in. I think I always just was like, I could probably get there faster if I run and shoot my grappling hook.
That's interesting, because I agree that you could probably get there faster, or at least more directly, and probably have more fun. But I loved either getting a Warthog or the like armored Warthog and just filling it with Marines. Yeah. And taking it with me to a base or something, and just me and my squad just wrecking whatever we came across. I really enjoyed that aspect of the game where you could kind of approach anything with a lot of different variety. Like you get the vehicles, which help out, but then if you bring some Marines, they'll help out. And yeah, usually they end up not making it because you're
Yeah.
going to fight something that's stronger than they are. But it's helpful to have one of them on the minigun or coming in there with some sort of a shotgun or something just to be a distraction or to have your back a little bit, take out some little grunts or something. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of prepping. All right, I'm going to go take on this base or this mission. Let me go to my closest FOB. Let me pick up these guns that I like. All right, let me pick this vehicle I want to use for this encounter. All right, get some Marines to join me. All right, we're off. Let's go. We're doing this thing. And I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, because that is definitely a fun way to play as well. I don't know that I ever brought a bunch of Marines into a big base, but I definitely would like free some of the Marines that were like around it on the way,
right,
and they would follow you in. And, you know, you've got all of these Marines kind of shooting and helping you out. It sucks that they all die, which, you know, is kind of a bummer.
I always felt like totally amazing and good at video games if I got through an encounter and still had Marines left over. It's like, yeah, I am the Master Chief.
Exactly. But yeah, like I don't know, it was just a really cool way that they did it. And it did make some of the maybe more longer missions that were a bit more enclosed and linear feel that much longer and enclosed, because you kind of got used to the more
the
open
freedom
world.
of the open world.
Yeah, like there were a lot of like, okay, you enter the room at this one door and you have to fight these enemies and get to the door on the other end of the room, versus like the open world where here's this base that you have to get to and take over. You can kind of get in any sort of way. You can try to be a little stealthy, although stealth really never works until once you fire your gun, everybody notices you.
Yeah.
But it's like you can approach it anyway. You can try to like get in there and get all these Marines. You can swing your grappling hook over and like just kind of hop right to this other area.
You can do more prep work before going in.
Mm-hmm. Like you can get all of your Marines like rocket launchers or sniper rifles or something and have them a little bit more prepared maybe. But then some of the missions where it's like, here's this kind of long corridor with enemies in it. Go at it.
I was going to ask you, that was my next thing I was going to move to, is the more story-driven campaign missions where you were just kind of going through hallways and arena rooms and fighting a bunch of enemies, then fighting a few more enemies, and then fighting some sort of a boss. How did you feel about those?
Yeah. In general, I didn't mind them. There were at least a few that felt like they probably went on a little bit longer than I would have liked.
Yeah.
The second to last mission in particular comes to mind, where there's several like rooms that are set up, I guess, as like training grounds. I don't know if they were training grounds for the Marines before the events of the Banished like taking over, or if the Banished were using captured Marines to like learn tactics or something. That part was a little unclear.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what was going on there either.
But there were like 3 or 4 of those rooms all kind of together. And you would go into one, you'd have some waves of enemies, then you'd leave and Escharum would talk to you, and then you'd go into another room that was basically the same, slightly different layout, some different weapons, but basically the same. And you'd fight again, fight a bunch of waves, and then go, and then Escharum would talk to you, and then you'd do it again. And they, you know, whatever the last one was, they threw a couple of hunters at you too. But some of those kind of felt like, all right, you could have made this 1 or 2 rooms shorter, and I still would have like gotten the point. I still would have felt like it was okay, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it was,
felt
especially
a little
as
padded,
I was
trying
to like, I was like, yeah, I want to get to the end of this game. I want to figure out what's good. Like, cause that was the point where it was like starting to tell you everything that had happened. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And I was just like, I gotta wait because I gotta fight through a bunch more. At that point in the game, it's like the grunts and the jackals are not going to kill you, you know?
Right.
Just throw the elites at me, or just throw the brutes and the hunters at me. Like, those are the things that I'm going to run into issues with, not these grunts, not the jackals.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of had a similar feeling towards the end of the game where it's like, oh, another hallway? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing? Okay. And then those rooms specifically jumped out at me too. I was like, okay, couldn't we have just done one big one instead of like 3 smaller ones? But
Yeah. And there was one level that had just like a bunch of sentinels on it, and I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever been a fan of fighting sentinels.
yeah,
And-
I was tired of that as well.
Yeah. And some of it too was like, again, I love the game. I think it's a great game. I love the campaign. There were a couple of missions where I just didn't get to play with the guns that I liked. And that was kind of like,
Right.
I don't think there was anything wrong with that. Like, part of Halo is it kind of at times will force you to use other guns that you wouldn't normally use because they like the Sentinel level. It was basically like you had to run through it. Eventually you would run out of ammo for the guns that you brought, and you would have to pick up like a Sentinel beam or this pulse rifle or the shock rifle or something like that. And I was like, I don't really like the shock rifle fires very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
The Sentinel beam is cool, but I feel like I'm always running out of ammo with it.
Yep.
And so there were some where I was like, can I just have my assault rifle and my shotgun? Like,
No, you cannot.
so some of that may have contributed to how long some of the games felt, or some of the
Right.
levels felt, because I was just like, I just want to, like at a certain point too, I unlocked the Convergence shotgun, which had like a doubled or tripled clip size and a smaller spread. So it was really good. And I was just like, I just want to get back to where I can like pick up another one of those. Can I
Right.
get to that point again?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're pretty much right on the same page with the campaign. We'll see where our scores net out. You want to shift to multiplayer and touch on that for a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, we can swap over to the multiplayer, because that's all of the campaign achievements I was getting were rare, which lets me
Yes.
know that less than 10% of people have played it. So multiplayer seems to be the big part of this game for a majority of people.
Yes.
So for me, I really like the campaign, but multiplayer is where it's at for at least 95% of the people who are playing this game.
Yeah, I noticed that too. That every single achievement was rare. It's like, okay, I'm one of the first, or just nobody's playing this or gonna play this. But yeah, multiplayer. We've touched on it on content already, but just the way it dropped was super cool. The way they dropped the beta, surprise drop, and it worked. It functioned. It was fantastic. Great moment in gaming. But
Yeah.
I've been playing since then. I've been playing since its full release, or since it has released in full. They took the beta tag off of it. I was playing over the weekend and was having a lot of fun doing the smaller matches, really getting the hang of the kind of the flow of Halo multiplayer, having a wonderful time. I haven't bought the battle pass. I'm not all hung up on those issues.
Mm-hmm.
I mostly just play to have fun. So
Yeah.
I've been loving multiplayer. I think it's a blast. Where have you been with it?
I also have been loving the multiplayer. I haven't been playing as much of it because I was playing the single player.
Yes.
I did eventually clear pretty much all of the big stuff on the single player map. And so the multiplayer kind of took a backseat for a while there. But I have really enjoyed the multiplayer that I've played. It makes me feel like I'm good at Halo again. Not always, but like for the most part, I guess the best way I can think of to describe it is when I play Call of Duty or something like that, or especially Battlefield, I feel like I'm dead and I never even had a shot
Right.
to kill or see that person before they hit me. Whereas in Halo, for the most part, I feel like a majority of the times that I die, either A, they got the drop on me and they were, the better player, and it's like, yep, nope, that's fair. Or if I died, I feel like, oh, if I had just played a little bit differently, if I had just done this, I could have maybe stood a chance. I could have maybe gotten them. And so it feels much more in my control. It feels more tied to my own personal skill rather than some cracked out 12-year-old who hits me with no scope with a sniper,
Yeah.
So
Cracked out 12-year-olds. Got to watch out for those.
exactly. So I've really been enjoying it. There are some things I wish were different, I guess, but I have been having a lot of fun just kind of running around, playing, shooting, playing Halo, playing with friends, some of which that I haven't played with in years.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up the main bulk of this and move into like our grading?
I just want to, I guess, shout out 343 for seeming fairly responsive
Yeah.
to a lot of the things. Like you kind of alluded to, neither of us is like really playing this game for the cosmetics, you know, like if I can make my Spartan look cool. If I can't, I played Halo 1 where everybody was just like, you had 12 colors to pick from and that was it. So,
Right.
you know,
Red versus blue.
exactly. So I'm okay without the cosmetics, but they were very responsive to, you know, like, oh, okay. People think that leveling up on the battle pass is too slow. So we're going to tweak this. We're going to change it. We're going to, you know, rearrange that. And, you know, maybe the cynic in me can be like, they always plan to do that. They just wanted the goodwill for listening. But also, you know, it is cool to see that they are listening. I know another one of the things is like when it launched, it just had like, here is the big team battle. Here is the social like 4-player or 4v4. And here is the ranked 4v4. And they didn't have the ability to like really pick Slayer or, you know, anything like that. I think they have said that they're coming out with like a solely like Slayer playlist. They have, you know, in response to something that the community's been asking for. And it really seems like they are treating this with like we want this to be a long-term thing. We want to listen to what the community says and has to offer and try to, you know, do our best within reason to offer these things. The community's complaining about $20 skins, and it's like, well, it is free. They have to make money somehow. And it's a cosmetic product. You don't have to buy it for $20 if you don't want to. But I did want to shout out 343 for taking this feedback and being responsive, listening to the community and trying to continue to iterate and improve on the game, even just like a couple months out from launch.
Yeah, no, that's a good shout. I think that they're doing a good job. You mentioned that, you know, the cynic in you saying maybe that was kind of planned, but I mean, look at how many studios launch in a bad state and then don't communicate with their community at all and don't fix anything and end up shutting down the game, Anthem, and, you know, so I think it is nice to see a company kind of acting and reacting like we would hope, and as people playing this game, and we're not the most diehard, but just the community would hope that they would respond and react. And it's nice to see that happen occasionally and be like, oh, okay, these companies can do this. It's not a myth, but
exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of a good note to wrap that up on. I just want to ask you one question. Is Halo back?
I mean, I would say yes. I definitely intend to continue to play it. This will probably, I've already uninstalled Call of Duty Black Ops from my Xbox. This will likely become my new, like, whenever I want to play a shooter, I'm going to just hop into some Halo. And so I fully intend to have this as like my shooter that I play. So I would say Halo's back. I think the story was really good. And if 343 continues to, like, I don't know if they've really talked about what their content roadmap is, but I would imagine that they're continuing, like they're making the multiplayer more of like a platform. So they'll continue to release some new maps as time goes on. They'll continue to tweak multiplayer. I know Forge is going to come out and the co-op campaign is going to come out. And so like they're going to continue to add features, continue to add stuff to the game for at least years to come, if not even more long term. And so,
yeah,
I think it's back. Halo 4 and 5 were weaker. And so Infinite being a huge step up from those, in my opinion, to me is like, yes, Halo's back.
Yeah, it feels to me as someone somewhat on the outside looking in that having a solid campaign and then having just a stellar multiplayer launch and then having a good multiplayer loop and then also just sheer luck, I guess, launching in a year where Battlefield and Call of Duty both just kind of stuttered out of the gate. You know, they didn't quite have the impact they were hoping for. It really does feel like this is Halo's year and Halo's back to kind of take that crown. And I think it's cool. It's nice to see him come back. You know, people were thinking that, you know, Halo might be dead. This could be the last one, but it's nice to see that that's not the case.
Yeah.
Because a little bit of variety in the first person shooter genre is welcome to me.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, let's move into our grade for this game, our review, if you will. Our we don't put numbers on them. We put letters like you did in grade school and we're still dealing with in college. So A through F, it is what it is. And then we have S as God tier, which, you know, that is the masterpiece. That is the best a game can be. And these are objective. There are scores. Dylan, why don't you throw yours out there first?
Yeah. So, you know, like Andrew said, these are our scores. So it's not like I'm trying to be, you know, a very objective reviewer. Right. This is my subjective opinion. But if you tend to, you know, if you've listened to some of our other things and you tend to agree with those scores that I give out, for me, this game is an A. As someone who's been playing Halo for 20 years, it feels very much like a return to what I remember Halo feeling like. Now I can load up the Master Chief Collection, play Halo 1 and be like, oh yeah, this is slow. This is a little, you know, we have definitely advanced since this time. But also, it plays like my nostalgia remembers it, I guess.
Exactly.
And it feels very much like Halo, but it is also modernized so that all those little quality of life things that we've got in more modern games are there too. And, you know, they've iterated on what it is. They haven't just made yet another Halo game. And so I like the story. I like the campaign. I think it's really cool. The open world that they did. And the multiplayer is super fun and it's free and it's on Game Pass. So if you have Game Pass, the campaign is free. So I know that I am the Xbox fanatic here. But if you've got Game Pass, or even if you only have a PlayStation, but you have a PC or something and you want a game stream with the xCloud, I think it's worth trying out with Game Pass.
Yeah, and for me, I'm right there with you. I'd give this game a solid B+. I think that it hits on so many levels. It does so many things right. The open world is super fun. The multiplayer is great. I think that the multiplayer definitely has some room to grow. I think that the campaign got a little repetitive in the mission structure, and I think that the story was not super great at onboarding people necessarily, but, you know, these are some nitpicky things, and as far as the multiplayer goes, stuff that's probably going to be addressed. So who knows, if you listen to this, if you discover our show a year from now and you're listening to this, some of these things I'm talking about may have already been fixed, but at the time of recording, you know, there is some room to grow. There's a little bit of room to improve, but overall, stellar game. Had a ton of fun with it. One of the few games from this year that I played from start to finish, and I had a really good time. So that's a B+ for me. With that, I think we can move into our closing segment for this episode. So for this episode, we are doing our run through of our 50 questions. And this is a really cool opportunity for the community to engage with us. I'm going to try to post these questions ahead of time and get community feedback and read your guys' responses on the show. So go ahead and follow us on Instagram and Twitter, because those are going to be the places where I ask them. But also feel free to jump in our Discord. You know, the link is going to be in the description for the podcast. And we would love to have you guys and engage with people on there and get your answers to these questions as well. But I didn't reach out at all for this episode, so it's just going to be me and Dylan on this one. But in the future, we're definitely looking to get that listener and community feedback on these questions. So the question that we're answering today is, what is a game you thought you'd like, but actually hated? So for me, I'm going to do the Dylan approach. I've got a couple answers. The first one, I put a couple down because the first one isn't hate. It didn't really click with me in the way that I expected that it would. And that is Uncharted. So I played the first Uncharted game, and it was old and janky. And I thought, all right, that's just because it's the first one. And then I played through the second one. Didn't really love it either that much. I was like, well, I hear they just keep getting better. And then I fell off the third one, and I still haven't finished it. And I can see how they would have been good at the time. I can see the things they did that are great. I think they're good at, Naughty Dog is great at characters and character interactions and things like that. And I see that in these games. And I've heard that 4 is the best, and it's the most modern. But for me, it didn't grab me, and I'll probably give 4 a shot, and maybe that will be the one that I love. But as of right now, just the Uncharted series just isn't my jam, which as someone who enjoys Tomb Raider, I thought that it'd be similar enough to that I would like it there, but don't hate it. It just hasn't been my thing so far.
Yeah.
But a game that I tried that I would borderline say I hate was Watch Dogs Legions. And that one surprised me because I liked Watch Dogs 1. I was a defender of the first game. I really liked Watch Dogs 2, which is the one that everybody says is good.
Mm-hmm.
And Legion seemed like it was trying something really cool and unique with how you could play any character in the world and all this stuff. And then I bought it on launch day, booted it up, played it for a few hours, traded it back in. It wasn't good. It felt bad to play to me, and the gimmick of recruiting people just wasn't as fun as I had hoped. There just was way more out that I would have rather been playing at the time, and it felt subpar even for Ubisoft, and I was really bummed out by that.
Yeah.
What about you, Dylan?
So I'm gonna throw a couple out because as I was thinking about this too. This first one, hate is maybe a strong word. I love the Elder Scrolls series. I love, I played a ton of Oblivion. I played a ton of Skyrim. I even played some Morrowind back in the day. And in general, I love these like big open world exploration games.
Yeah.
And so Fallout, made by the same people, it seems like a really cool big open world exploration game. Yeah, it's not fantasy, it's more of like a sort of post-apocalyptic sci-fi, but so the concept seems the same. Everything seems to be there for me to like it.
Yeah.
And it's not that I hate the game. I just have never gotten into it. Like I've tried to pick up Fallout 3, have never stuck with that. I picked up Fallout 4, was never able to stick with it. And I can see why people like those games. I can understand how cool they are. For some reason, I have just never been able to stick with them. And it surprises me because looking at those games, I'm like, oh yeah, this seems like something I'd love. And I just haven't. The game that I would say that I hate is Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance. Which if you've listened to
the award show.
Game Awards episode, you'll understand a little bit more why. But I am a fan of the Dungeons and Dragons. I like the Forgotten Realms series that the game is based on. I grew up reading those books, and so I was looking forward to this game once it got announced, and like I was not expecting an S tier game. I was not. I was like, this is going to be like a solid C plus B minus. Like, it's going to be fun to play through, but it's not going to be good. It's not going to be the perfect game. And what I got was a D minus F tier game. And like I said, I was not expecting perfection, but I was not expecting the hot garbage that game was. And maybe I need to go back and see if they've changed things, see if they fixed things, because maybe it was just like it launched and it had some bugs, it had some stuff that they needed to work out. But I tried to play and love that game for like a couple of days, and I was just not having fun. And in my opinion, like, if you're not having fun, why are you playing video games? So that is the game that I probably have come closest to hating, and not because it wasn't fun, but just because as a fan of that series, I was like, they could have done so much. They could have been so good. This game had potential, and they just squandered it by making it not fun, by making it not a good game. So that's my answer.
Good answers. Yeah, I vibe with that Fallout answer, because I have never been able to get into those as someone that loves Elder Scrolls. But I've also heard that it seems like people kind of pick a side. There's Fallout people and Elder Scrolls people, and I guess I'm just an Elder Scrolls people.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting that this is the question we had to answer after talking about a game that we really enjoyed for an hour. And it's like, what's a game that you hated?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Well, I think unless you have anything else that you want to mention, that'll do it for Halo Infinite. Great game. Go check it out, everybody. It's on Game Pass.
Yeah.
Play the campaign. It's worth it.
It is. It is.
Cool. Well, with that, we will catch you guys on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Friendly Neighborhood Gamers podcast. If so, we would greatly appreciate your help in growing the show and the community by giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and any other podcasting app that allows it.
We also have some awesome content on YouTube at Your Friendly Neighborhood Gamers, and we stream on Twitch every Friday night at 7:30 p.m. Central Time at neighborhood_gamers.
We hope to see you there. Thanks again for listening, and remember,
Stay friendly, gamers.
You should leave me here with the rest of the garbage.
We all fail. We all make mistakes. It's what makes us human.
I'm sorry, Chief, but how have you ever failed?
I should have protected Cortana. Stopped everything from going wrong. I failed her. I will not fail you.